So hitting recording. So welcome everyone. I'm Edwin Rutsch. I'm director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, and this is our visioning circle on envisioning a retreat center at the 1964 Canoas, Las Canoas Road in Santa Barbara. And this is an ongoing series with the Santa Barbara community that we're doing just to connect and hear everyone's ideas and vision for the property. And we invite others who are maybe watching this to consider joining us in future empathy circles. So we want to have these be ongoing. We're doing them every Monday at the present, and we might sort of scale that up too and do it more often. So I just want to start with just maybe everybody introduce themselves, just your name, your location, maybe why you're interested in taking part in these dialogues and empathy circles. And I'll just model it. I'm Edwin Rutsch. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area near Berkeley and El Cerrito. I've lived here for about 30 years, and I'm the director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, which is the largest internet resource for promoting empathy on the internet. And Charles, my brother, bought the property and asked me to, be involved in the development of it, and so that's why I'm interested. And I see it as a real potential for promoting empathy, culture of empathy in the world. So. But we'll just go around and hear from everyone else. Carolyn, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Caroline McDougall. I'm a neighbor of the property that Charles just bought. I've lived on Las Canoas Road. Well, I lived here once for a year in the very early 80s, 1980 and 81. And then I bought my home here in 1986. So fairly long time resident. I'm interested in retreat centers. I was a member of a spiritual community in Scotland in the 70s called Findhorn. I don't know if any of you all have heard of it. So I'm quite, oriented towards spiritual work, spiritual growth, inner growth work, all those kinds of things. Been involved in various ways with that community, as well as with other circles and other communities like the Ojai Foundation over all these years. And I have a company that I run. I have to apologize today. I only have until 11 o'clock, but I am really enthusiastic about participating in some more in the future.
Oh, great. Thank you. Charles, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Charles Rutsch, Edwin's brother. I bought the property. I live in Carmichael, which is next to Sacramento. I have 4 children and a wife. And what kind of stock investor, real estate. That's about all.
Okay, thanks. Peter and Story?
Yeah, I'm Peter Kornbluth. We are the neighbors directly to the west at 1976 Las Canoas Road, and we bought this property in 1988. And we had the Catholic Church as our neighbors there until 1915, and that was always an extremely positive relationship. And I'm a contractor by trade. We have 2 grown children with their own families. One of those families lives on our property now. And, we are, of course, looking forward to your project. Story?
I'm Story Kornbluth. I'm the mother of the children. And I'm thrilled to have you as neighbors. We've always had great neighbors there. Father Patrick was an especially fun neighbor. I think he's not doing well, but I would encourage you to try and look him up and find him, because he has such a joyful, kind of hands-on, lovely approach to being sort of the manager of that property and using it in a very, very growthful and generous way. So I'm thrilled that there's a possibility that we could continue that. it feels good to think that the property is going to be useful. It should be. It's a fabulous property. I congratulate you for making this step. I mean, we all love it. It's the sort of the center of our community. And we all feel very involved, and we're really grateful to have good stewards of that property again.
Thank you. Dawa?
Hello, my name is Dawa Tarchin Phillips. I am a local to Santa Barbara since 2008. I came after living in a Buddhist monastery for 12 years as a monk and 7 years in a retreat, and came here to lead a local meditation community called the Bodhi Path community, which has a center downtown. I've also collaborated with the university on mindfulness research for the US Office of Education. And I've met my wife here in Santa Barbara. We got married in 2016, and we now have a 14-month-old son named Mateo. And Santa Barbara has been a great blessing. I've enjoyed living here and getting to know the community and giving back to the community. And I've visited the property actually twice before, and always had a sense of connection and possibility as to what could happen there. And so when I learned that it had gone into escrow, and then I found out about Edwin and Charles and their intention, I was very elated, because I think that the work that Edwin has done already in the world is incredible, and this approach also collectively to think about how to what to give rise at this property in a collective way also resonates with me as well. So I'm really glad to be here.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So we're going to be using the empathy circle process for this dialogue. So as I mentioned, I've been working about 15 years on how do we build a more empathic society. And I found that the empathy circle practice, based on active listening or empathic listening, is the best sort of foundational practice for everyone being heard and creating a more empathic society. And it's based on everyone being heard to their satisfaction. So I don't know if you had a chance to see the instructions. I had sent out instructions, but the core of it is we'll have the topic, and I'll post that into the chat here, which is, what is your vision for 1964 Las Canoas Rd, Santa Barbara, for making a retreat center here, and or whatever's on your mind. So you can always speak about anything that you feel have energy for, and you'll have 4 minutes turns, and we may increase that towards the end. So you can share an idea or two. You'll speak select a listener. You'll share an idea or two, pause, let the listener reflect back their understanding of what you've said. You check, did they really get what I'm saying? If they did, you can continue with what you're saying. If they didn't understand it, then you can just say it again and maybe other words. And then after the 4 minutes is up, I'll just hold up maybe a little sign here, time. I'll keep time too. And that's sort of to end. You can kind of just finish what you're saying in a sentence or two, get your final reflection. Then it becomes the listener's turn to speak, and they select someone to speak to. And if you've seen the previous circles, you have sort of a sense of how to do it. And then we'll go for about an hour and a half, and then just kind of open it to open discussion. And so with that, I'm the first listener who would like to start. I'm here to listen, and I'll keep time to. Let me bring that up. Stopwatch.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'd actually like to listen to you and Charles. Do you get to participate in this? Because I'd really like to hear what your vision is.
Oh yeah, we all listen. So it sounds like you're going to be the first speaker, and I'll reflect back. So you're really wanting to hear from Charles and I what our thoughts are. Exactly. And so you're maybe have some questions, and you're wondering if we're going to speak. Yes, and we will.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I know you've been now through, I think it's 2 listening empathy circles. I unfortunately didn't have a chance to watch them, and I'd love to know where you have come now that you've bought this property. What was it, a month or 2 ago, something like this, and where you've come to, how you are holding it, and what your vision is for it.
Yeah, so you've seen that we've Charles bought it for last month or 2, and you're just wondering where is the vision and what sort of, yeah, at this point, where are we with it? Is there more? Do you feel heard?
I totally feel heard.
Okay, great. Then it's my turn. So now as the listener, it's my turn to be the speaker, and I'll select Charles to speak to.
Okay.
And I'm just starting the timer. Yeah, it's a big, what do I want to say? I just was on a call with Kent Ferguson, who has done many schools and been in Santa Barbara, and so we just had a really good conversation. We're sort of talking about the center, and he's kind of giving advice, sort of a bit of an advisory council, I guess, informal.
Yeah, so you've been talking to Ken Ferguson, and he's given you lots of good advice.
And the thing that's kind of on my mind, so that I feel energized about, is that, he invited some friends to take part, and he thought that some people might be sort of skeptical of the project because Charles is coming from a very politically right evangelical, point of view. And I'm coming from an empathic, I would say, sort of not really centrist, but not left, not right, but let's bring the sides together point of view.
So he said some people were skeptical because I come from kind of a right religious point of view, and you come from a kind of middle left empathic, bringing people together point of view.
Yeah, we grew up in an evangelical Christian, sort of household, conservative. I did many years of travel, like 10 years of, world travel in my, after high school. And I sort of moved to the political left, I would say, to progressive. And I have now moved to, I would say, to the empathic. So it's really, how do we bridge the divides between all the different groups in the country, be it religious or political or social groups?
So we grew up in kind of a religious environment, and you went off and traveled the world for 10 years, and you kind of identified political progressive left, but now you're kind of more in the center, bringing people together. And
yeah, and I actually did run for Congress as a Democrat with the message of empathy. Got about 3% of the vote, so it's a message we're trying to get out there. So in terms of the vision I'm coming from is, can we make the center, grounded in empathy, where people listen to each other? Because my faith is that if people can really listen to each other and hear each other, you can kind of work out any kind of issues, but it's really based on mutual listening and empathy as the core.
So you actually ran for Congress last year, got 3% of the vote, and you're just kind of trying to put out your message of empathy, and you have faith in this empathy idea that if people just listen to each other and try to understand each other, then they can produce a better world and come together.
Yeah, exactly. And especially in the country with all the polarization that's happening, I believe that it's empathy that can really bridge the political and social divides in the country. So that's what I'm advocating for. It's sort of a core vision.
So with such a divided country, you're advocating for empathy, which you believe can bring us all together.
Yeah. So that's my time, and so I feel fully heard. Charles, you're up.
Okay, I'll speak to Peter. So you're probably wondering why I bought the property. So a friend of mine mentioned it was being put up to auction. And the price was kind of low initially. So I bid a few times, and you can reflect back.
Yeah, you want us to understand why you bought the property, and that it a friend of yours had suggested it, and the price seemed, I guess, seemed reasonable to you. And you bid a few times, and you won the bid.
Yeah, I kind of stopped as it was going up, but then it said next bid meets the reserve price. So I said, well, I'll bid one more time. And I just happened to meet the reserve price and win the property.
Right. So you just you hit that number. It was the reserve price that they were willing to sell it for, and nobody bid higher than you, and you got it.
So my vision for the property was kind of like a retreat center for church camps, men's and women's retreats, youth camps. And I knew my brother had an interest in his empathy work, and he might be interested in holding empathy workshops there.
So your original idea was to have it be a retreat center for church camps, and I guess similar kind of things, which I have to make the comment, that's exactly the use that it had from 1988 to 2015. Exactly. That's what happened. But then you expanded the idea to include your brother's work with empathy.
And I've heard there's lots of people in the community who want to have like different kinds of educational and workshops, like yoga, Buddhist retreats, or things like that. So all of that is welcome. Whoever wants to hold retreats there, I'm open to any ideas.
Right. So you're open to things more than just church camps and your brother's plans. And again, to comment, that was also true when Father Patrick was up there. It wasn't just Catholic.
So you want to just reflect back what you heard at this point. When it's your turn to speak, you can talk about anything,
okay.
just to keep
right.
in the
Well,
process.
I think I did that. So,
Mhm.
yes.
Okay, that's all I have to say. I feel heard. It's your turn, Peter.
Yeah.
Choose who you're going to talk to.
Oh, I'll talk to Dawa. So again, we lived up here with neighbors for decades, and there were all sorts of activities there. It was not empty and silent and quiet. There were weekend retreats. There were week-long high school groups that came up from Los Angeles, from the Catholic schools in Los Angeles, and it was always positive and neighborly.
So you lived next to the property for a long time and witnessed the activity for decades that was going on there. And it was never just quiet, but in fact, very lively activities went on, including groups of high school students that would come up from the Catholic schools in Los Angeles. And so it was always lively and full of activity.
Right. There were couples in crisis weekends. There were couples about to be married weekends. There were yoga retreats. It was pretty broad in its capacity to reach out.
The center was broad in its capacity to reach out and included retreats for couples who were experiencing crisis, and also retreats for couples who were about to get married, and also yoga retreats.
And our concern, which we share with all of our neighbors, is compatibility with the neighborhood in terms of traffic and which has never been a problem, and also obviously fire safety, which is related to traffic, because in a fire here, traffic becomes an enormous issue, and it has never been a problem in the past.
So a concern that you have and that you share with other neighbors around the property is with regards to traffic, the amount of people traveling up to the property, and fire safety. And you are pointing out that neither one of those has been a problem in the past.
Yes, exactly. I think that's pretty much expresses my thoughts for the moment.
Okay. Dawa, if you select your listener.
I will speak to Charles. I have seen you and Edwin walk through the property and filming, and it seems like there's still quite a bit of work to do, also to bring the property into a shape for people to come and spend time there and get these groups going.
Okay. So you've seen the videos that Edwin and I did that are on YouTube, and you've seen that there's quite a bit of work to be done on the property to make it usable.
I really enjoyed when I read the name of the company that had made the purchase. I think, if I remember correctly, it was Christ Victor or something, Victor Christ or something like
Christus
this.
Victor.
Christus Victor, yes, that made me very happy.
Yes, so it made you very happy to see the name of the LLC that I created to hold the company, hold the property.
So I have myself led retreats for many years in Santa Barbara, at Casa de Maria, at a Christian youth camp up at the top of Refugio Road. Currently, we're leading retreats at Camp Ramah, which is a Jewish retreat center in Ojai. And so I'm very aware of the limitations, let's say, for good retreat centers, especially since the mud flow decimated Casa de Maria, that there really are not a lot of centers to lead group retreats in the area.
So you've been involved in quite a few different retreats at different places in the area. And it sounds like one retreat center was destroyed by a mud flow. So you feel there's a lack of retreat centers. So I think you feel happy that this one will be available. I don't know if he's still there.
It looks like he froze. His
Frozen.
video froze. Maybe he'll unfreeze shortly. Do you give it a second? Do you want to continue, Charles? Select another listener, and then we'll come back to Dawa. Yeah, he's
Okay. Carolyn hasn't spoken yet, so
it's Peter's Story, hasn't Peter's wife?
oh, Okay, I'll
Your name's not on there, but it's Story. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to talk the story?
Just to, so
I'm
everyone
a
gets a
little worried
chance.
that I'm just gonna cough through it, but I will do my best. I
Okay,
was in,
No, Charles will speak to you and you'll reflect what he's saying.
oh, good, thank you.
so Dava was saying that from the videos, there's a lot of work to be done, and that's true. So half of it has been renovated already, but there's no furniture. You want to reflect back?
Lots of work. Half of it is done, but it has no furniture yet.
And then the other half, the dormitory part with the library, that's in kind of disarray. It was partly demolished. And so that will need to be renovated.
The library dormitory is in disarray and needs to be renovated.
Yes. So I gather that'll be at least a 5, 6, 7 month process. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
It'll take time, 5 or 7 months probably, to get that organized, that area organized.
Okay, that's all I had to say. It's your turn.
Oh, well,
So just select your listener and it'll reflect Story.
let's see. Caroline, you can be my listener. Thank you. I actually think the campus, as they would call it, is so wonderfully situated and so varied that actually it lends itself to all sorts of activities that may be peripherally only, spiritual. For example, for many years there were basketball players who would meet there on a weekly basis to play basketball. And then I'm thinking of that incredible kitchen. That could be a really fun resource as well, since there aren't too many kitchens in this town that could perhaps be educational in food preparation or gatherings or whatever.
You want to pause for a second, let Carolyn reflect back. You could, if the person is speaking a lot, you can ask them to pause and so you have a chance to reflect.
Sorry, I'll figure it out.
Well, Story is recalling that in the past, the campus, which I think is the word you use, has been used for many different purposes. And there's a fantastic basketball court there. And she remembers that there used to be basketball happening there numbers of nights a week. And that there's also an incredible kitchen there that she is hoping perhaps might be used again for even teaching cooking classes or food education or something like that.
Thank you. Do I continue?
Yeah.
Okay. My only concerns are really, I think that the fire and the traffic has been addressed. I think another possible problem could be light pollution. We actually really enjoyed the joyful teenagers kind of yelling across the canyon in jubilation. That was fun, but light pollution could be a problem at night. That's enough.
Okay, so Story does have a concern as to whether excuse me, light pollution could be a problem at night. A lot of light up on the campus that could, maybe spoil the atmosphere of the neighborhood. Although she has enjoyed in the past teenagers who've been up there on retreat and hearing their joyful communications with each other.
Thank you. I feel very well heard.
Okay, so it's me, but
Mhm.
I feel like Dawa didn't really get
Yeah,
to.
if you want to speak to him and then
Yeah.
he can be looped back in.
All right. So Dawa, I'm kind of excited to learn about your background and that you've been leading retreats here for a long time. And I imagine that you have thought similar thoughts that I've thought in terms of how the management of this center is going to take place. So one of my questions today, which really isn't for you, Dawa, but is for Charles and Edwin, is what their plans are for really staffing a center like this so that it can run smoothly.
So you're excited to hear about the work that I had done in the past in the area. And then with regards to the center, you are concerned about, or you have questions about the vision for the running of a center such as this, the ongoing administration, and a question for Edwin and Charles, how they envision the staffing the operation.
Yeah, and I'm as I said earlier, I'm a business owner, so I'm really used to hiring and staffing and all the challenges that brings. And just know that running a business like this takes a lot of time and energy. So I'm just my biggest concern is, are you in it for the long haul? Because it'll be a long haul.
And so because you are a business owner yourself, you think about these things, about staffing and hiring and training and firing. And so your question is, are Edwin and Charles in it for the long haul? Because it will take a lot of work. You are aware it will take a lot of work.
That's it for me.
Would it make sense to give a chance to answer, or shall I just
You can
continue?
just, it's your turn to speak. So just select whoever you wish to
Okay.
speak to. We just keep the process going.
Okay, Edwin, I speak to you.
Okay.
So for me, this property always had a bit of a quality of a beacon, and the positioning also of it, the location of it. I somehow anticipated a radiance coming from this property into the area.
So you've seen the property as a beacon that has a radiance that goes into the community.
And so I have also envisioned prior before hearing your plans for the property and what the state of the property currently is, that maybe a stupa, a symbol of peace and of unification could be built on such a property, and kind of express that positive influence over the area or throughout the area. So
you imagine if it's sort of this beacon, you see it as a beacon, that perhaps a stupa could be built there that would hold that quality that sort of radiates to the community. I don't know if I quite got that. Oh.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. And then also, of course, the practitioners, the people who pray there or who meditate or who do the healing work, or also maybe art. One could have wonderful art classes up there as well. But that all of this activity generated there, that it somehow has this quality of radiating up and down the coast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you really see it as a center. You see it as a center that can really have all these different activities, but that it really radiates up and down the coast, sort of radiates a certain energy.
That has been my sense. Thank you. I feel heard.
Okay, then thank you. I'll speak to Peter.
Okay.
Let's see what. So in terms of the long haul, Charles just bought it recently, so we're sort of negotiating the direction he's asked me to, sort of manage it. So I think we're still sort of working that out. And I'm still trying to understand exactly what he has in mind and how we can work together. So it's sort of a process we're doing. And these empathy circles are sort of helping with that.
Right. So you're in the process of trying to work with Charles to figure out what the next steps are in completing the vision, and these circles help.
And for the vision that I'm bringing is that radiating, Kent Ferguson in the previous circle, he mentioned that too, because we've been talking a bunch, is that for me that empathy, mutual listening, mutual empathy is sort of that core energy that I see sort of radiating out, kind of like a sun, metaphorically, right? Because it's just, if we can get people to listen to each other from every different walk of life, I really think that that's what, it heals, it creates a foundation for collaboration and just general well-being.
So you see your work in empathy as being the central core around which this whole process will be built, and hopefully that will expand beyond the property and affect the community or the country or the world, because you see that as the key to clearly to solving bigger problems.
Yeah, it's people can then work out their issues if they can listen to each other. So we're sort of walking the talk by doing these circles in terms of creating the vision for the center, that it's not like, hey, we're going to dictate it. I mean, we do have, our vision, but we do want it to be a dialogue and we actually do what we're talking about. So we have, people in the staff, one person, Christian, he's going to be joining the empathy circle, the future one. Charles's wife, Vasilisa, is going to be joining. So this is part of that process, doing what we're talking about.
Right. So it seems like you're bringing people in that will reflect this idea, that you're bringing people from maybe from different directions to try to facilitate your vision.
Exactly. This value of mutual empathy. And that means, in terms of, I guess, the stupa is a Buddhist sort of a background. Charles is very, Christian, evangelical Christian. I'm atheist, but it's really about bringing the different communities together so they can dialogue. And we've held empathy circles with interfaith empathy circles. So that's, just kind of bringing the religious aspect.
Right. So what you have done and you would like to do is to bring different people with different spiritual goals or practices and have them get together.
And it's that getting together and dialoguing is the vision, that be promoting that dialogue. And I might mention too that since it was a Catholic seminary previously, Pope Francis has talked a lot about the importance of empathy. And I have a whole bunch of quotes where he says it's core, empathy is core to, just seeing our common humanity.
Right. So the fact that it was a Catholic retreat center, or I think it was a novitiate for so long, reminds you that Pope Francis is deeply involved in this concept
of empathy. Yeah, I've been a proponent of it.
As a way to, I guess, move forward.
Yeah, I feel heard. It's my time.
Great. Can I step in?
Yeah, you speak to select whoever you wish to speak to.
Okay, and Charles, you could be my listener. This is just a quick story, which in the Democratic primary in 2020, I decided, as a just sort of a little personal poll, to ask pretty much everybody that I knew who they would prefer to be president, and not who I thought that was going to win or who would be, but if they were the only voter in the world, who would, if they could just anoint a president, who would that be?
Okay, so you in the 2020 election, you kind of polled your friends in the community. If they were the only voter, who would they choose to be president?
That's right. Anyway, I'm not going to say who it was because that's not important. What's important is that all 50 people chose the exact same person, which reflects the degree to which I live in an incredible bubble.
Okay, so you're not going to say who those 50 people chose. They all chose the same person, but you're saying you live in a political bubble.
Exactly. And it's more than a political bubble, it's a social and cultural bubble. And to me, that's a big part of this problem, that we're all siloed off with people exactly like us in our lives.
And so you see it as kind of a problem because people are siloed off in their lives. I mean, similar people kind of move to where their ideas or their opinions are echoed by people around them, and you see that as a problem.
Exactly. Well, I see it as an issue with your task. Santa Barbara is a very homogeneous place, and I don't encounter other viewpoints very often.
So Santa Barbara is a very homogeneous place, and you don't encounter other viewpoints very often.
Right. Thank you. That's perfect. I just wanted to express that.
Okay, so my turn. I'll talk to Carolyn. So when I was first buying the property, I saw on YouTube a video of the neighbors kind of protesting the idea of the property being used as a treatment center or a homeless center. We can reflect back on that.
When you first were buying the property, you went to YouTube and saw a video of some of our neighbors protesting a plan to bring the homeless up to the center, to be living in the center.
And so I knew that, you know, part of your concerns was the traffic, and I knew that, well, any use of the property would bring some traffic in. So I was kind of concerned about that. Now I know you have that concern as neighbors.
So you understood that we neighbors had a concern about traffic, and that you know that was a strong concern, and that made you a little worried about the property you were in the process of buying or had just bought.
But so far, all the neighbors have embraced the idea of a retreat center. They seem to love that idea. I just kind of had one question. If there's an occasional like wedding in the chapel, how you neighbors would feel about that, because that might bring in kind of like temporary traffic.
So so far you found that we neighbors are really embracing the idea of the property or the campus continuing as a retreat center. But you do have a question of what happens if you have, let's say, a larger event like a wedding, where maybe, I don't know, let's just say a couple hundred people. You didn't say that, but come up. Would we be concerned about that traffic? I'm sorry, my gardener is blowing. I don't know if you all are hearing it. He'll be moving the blower soon. I can mute myself if it's bothering you.
Can't hear it.
You can't hear. Oh, good.
Okay, that's all I had to say.
Okay.
It's your turn, Carolyn. You can
Okay.
choose who you're going to speak to.
Okay. Well, I think I'll speak to Story. Story, you up for it?
Absolutely.
So it's an interesting aspect that you've brought up, Charles, because in fact, what we're really concerned about is fire. We've all evacuated numbers of times. We've had fire come into the canyon. Story and Peter lost their home in one of the fires. And so the homeless problem for us was a problem of people not understanding how to live with this environment up here in a manner that would be safe.
Our main concern was that having a population who resided here, they might not be savvy or well informed about how cautious and careful this population is about fire.
And so I think one of the opportunities that the campus presents for anybody who would come and participate there is to learn about our natural world, which is so beautifully present surrounding the campus. I don't know if the two of you have had a chance to hike our Rattlesnake Canyon trails, but there's so much great opportunity. And as you know, I think three of us here anyway, with Ken Ferguson, we're involved in outdoor wilderness education of youth.
Yes, your property is unique in that it is absolutely surrounded by many areas of green zone, and those of us who were allied with Kent Ferguson through his middle school at one point, there was a strong emphasis on outdoor education, another possibility for this campus.
And so whether it's for youth or adults, outdoor education is something that's really an outdoor, even exposure, let's just say. The being in nature is something that's very strong in my being and my orientation in life. It's probably why I've been living here since 1986. And so I hope for this center that it is that everyone who comes there really experiences that. What Dawa was saying about the what should we call it? It's a power that I mean, that's just a simple way to say it, that comes from nature and that is really channeled through this canyon and through that property. And so I hope everybody gets to experience that. Who comes
I think what she's saying is that the common denominator of the people who live in this canyon is a profound respect and honoring of nature, and that she thinks that this campus would offer a unique opportunity to expose people and invite people to live that respect and honor and joy of being in nature.
I think that's it for me. Story, it's you. You get to go.
Yep, again, you select your listener.
Okay. Dawa. I'm grateful for the fact that I think that the goal of this whole enterprise is to bring spirit and environment and discord being solved through this process and this environment and this incredible campus, and hopefully a very inventive staff. I think it's a fabulous goal.
You are grateful that the goal of this project is to bring together spirit and care for the environment, and the intention to resolve discord a place like this, and to bring staff and people to come and work here at this place for this project that you believe to be a very special, worthwhile goal.
Yes, thank you. That's enough.
Caroline. I greatly value what what Kent and everybody at the middle school have accomplished. I have a niece and nephew that go there, and I have many times worked with teachers there on different mindfulness initiatives. The outdoor experiences that these young people go through are, in my view, as much about their own rite of passage as they are about the environment. And I think that this particular experience, a rite of passage experience, is a experience that is very much difficult to find nowadays for many young people, and has been such a invaluable contribution that Kent and everybody at the middle school has made possible.
So Dawa is telling me and all of us that he also has been involved in the middle school, both from a niece and nephew that attend there, as well as his work with Kent Ferguson, the former founder and principal. What would we call him? Principal? I can't remember what we called him in the school.
Headmaster.
Headmaster. Thank you, headmaster. And that you really value the effect that the school has had on young people's lives in the ways that it's helped them to grow, both from an environmental point of view as well as from an interpersonal point of view.
And I'm saying this because I think maybe this function of providing a place where a rite of passage can occur could be also something that this place could facilitate.
And part of middle school was rites of passage for youth. And you're hopeful that in the future that there might be retreats for youth at the school that would involve rites of passage.
Or even adults who are in need of a rite of passage.
Including adults that are in need of rites of passage.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I'll choose eeny, meeny, miny, moe. I think I'll choose Charles. So something I have in common with Dawa, who I'm just meeting here today, is that I too was involved with rites of passage with a organization called the School of Lost Borders. And they did rites of passage over on the eastern side of the Sierras, which were fasting and alone time in the wilderness for, depending on whether it was youth or adults, 3 days for youth and 4 days for adults.
So you were involved in a program with rites of passage. It involved some fasting or alone time or meditation in the wilderness.
True. And those rites of passage, both my sons went through, as well as I went through with my husband, had profound effects on all of our lives. And I personally have had the thought when we were all envisioning what could happen to, I call it St. Mary's because we have for years, what could happen to the property. I thought, wow, what a perfect place to do rites of passage for people, because you can be relatively safe having a center like that and going off into the off of trails, taking alone time, however long it's for, and then returning for integration. So it's exciting to me to think about that taking place from there.
we lose Charles?
Did we lose Charles?
We like, so everybody's having internet connections, but I'll reflect that. So you're really interested in this whole rites of passage approach that Dawa was talking about, seeing the importance. You've had really good experience with that, and just seeing the potential for doing that at the center, trying to find a name. St. Mary's the center campus, so looking for a name, kind of unnamed at the moment.
I understand. And so, I mean, there's so many great possibilities of what can occur there. There's no question about it. And I want to express appreciation for both you and Charles for being open to all of our ideas, to our aspirations and our hope for the property, and also to our concerns, because as we've stated earlier, fire safety, appropriate use of this sensitive area in which the campus is of utmost concern to all of us.
So I'm hearing a real appreciation for the openness, that we're kind of open to hearing the concerns, and some of the concerns are about the fire being an issue. Yeah.
And unfortunately, my hour seems to have come to an end. I have to jump onto my next Zoom meeting, but I just want to leave you with that gratefulness from me.
Okay, and you're just wanting to leave us. You have to go, but you're leaving us with your sense of gratitude, and much appreciated. So thanks for taking part, and you can take part in more too, because we're holding these on an ongoing basis, and so join as often as you wish.
I will. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Story, and Peter and Dawa, and please thank Charles for me.
Okay, thanks. Okay, we're losing people here, but maybe Dawa, I'll speak to you. Yeah, the vision, as I'm seeing it, because I'm coming from the culture of empathy, this one value that I think is sort of missing in the culture. And I'm not the only person to talk about, Barack Obama, when he ran his campaign, he talked exceeding often about the importance of empathy, saying the country had an empathy deficit. So, he very much ran on this vision as well.
The central piece that you really see as part of what is needed is this theme of empathy. And you are not the only one speaking about it, but also other people, including Barack Obama, former president, have stressed that the country really has an empathy problem.
And so I'm seeing it very much as sort of this core value in trying to connect, being very open to all the different methods, all different practices, and connecting those with empathy as much as possible. So in terms of nature, there's a sense of having empathy with nature, and also how nature creates a sense of self-empathy. You kind of connect more deeply with yourself, so that can so I do look for whatever everyone's saying. For example, I look for, well, what's the connection with this vision of empathy?
So in all the different approaches and possibilities, there's always a connection to empathy. And for example, nature can be connected with empathy, our empathy for nature, and also how empathy helps us develop. How nature helps us develop empathy with ourselves. And so in all the different approaches that are being mentioned, you are always looking for this connection to this central theme of empathy and the vision you hold for the center being in support of empathy.
Exactly. And when we talked about different faiths, it's how do we have the faiths, an interfaith dialogue where, the different faiths listen to each other. So I see that as another aspect. So, yeah, so that's sort of just for where I'm coming from, what I've been working on, trying to spread that message.
And also in the dialogue between different faiths, in the interfaith dialogue, what role does empathy play there to facilitate that dialogue. And so that aspect of maybe a clear process and a clear focus on empathy as part of that process, that is what has been the focus of your work.
And right now, Charles and I are still sort of working out the details of, the structure, the vision. What do we agree on? He'd asked me to manage it. We're sort of working on it together. So it's still, it's still sort of everything is sort of still in the gelling, forming stage. But we are, we're planning on coming down, shortly to start, working, doing some physical cleaning up. Charles has talked with the architect about doing the renovation. So, the ball is sort of rolling in terms of the improvement of the property.
And Charles and you are still talking and comparing your visions and bouncing each other's visions off of each other to refine the way forward. And you're also coming down soon, and you have already been speaking to an architect about beginning the work of renovation of certain aspects of the property, and you're planning to visit soon in order to begin that work.
Yeah, and Rosa was in the first empathy circle. She's the architect, so she took part in it. And she was also involved in the renovations, the initial renovations of one wing. So she's already been involved in it.
And Rosa, who was in the first vision circle, she is the architect. And she also is already involved in the renovation of one of the wings of the property.
Yeah, and I feel fully heard. And maybe at this point, since some people have dropped out, we can just open it up to just general discussion without the reflection. Would that be okay for everyone? Just
Sure.
Any questions, any comments? We like to get started with the empathy circle, and then we can just open it up. So maybe this is a good time to open it up now. So do we have any other questions or comments? I'm looking forward, Peter and Story, to meeting you. Just sounds, it's I see your property right over there, your house, I've seen it from the view.
Well, one thing we wanted to discuss was I don't know if you and Charles have talked to city planning, and there's history in terms of conditional use permits that we know reasonably well. And if you don't mind, I could kind of go into that a little bit.
Sure, be great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the facility was built, I think, in 1962. And at the time it was permitted for an educational facility. And I think that the numbers were something like a live-in cohort of 80 students and a staff of 20 or 25. And then the property was sold in 2015 to a group out of Los Angeles that did a drug and alcohol rehabilitation. And I think, was it called Axis? Might have been called Axis, I'm not really sure. But they got a conditional use permit to run a rehabilitation facility up there with the city, which was for 40 beds and a staff of 23. And one of the issues that came up with the homeless shelter, and later with the idea of using St. Mary's for rehabilitation, was that those numbers didn't work out financially. In other words, I think they had trouble putting together a package with that few people that made sense. And all along, the community was perfectly fine with those numbers. of 40 and 23 based on the 2015 conditional use permit. That sailed through in 2015 without any with very little opposition. Nobody seemed to care. And but that's where it stands now. And I don't know, I'm not knowledgeable about city planning. But whatever happens up there, we'll have to get through, you know, the conditional use permit. I can express an opinion that your use is going to be positively viewed by the community. I don't think you're going to get much opposition to do what you're trying to do, you know, no matter what the details are. But I thought that the numbers are important, and I thought getting that history out there was kind of important. And
mainly because it manages traffic.
yeah, that's all about traffic and fire, those numbers. But I don't know any more than what I just told you about that. So
yeah, I had seen the conditional use permit. There was one from when it was built, I guess 2016, and then it seemed like the paper I saw was that they had, I guess, sent to the Planning Commission outlining their, you know, vision for the not retreat center, but the treatment center, and that they had gotten sort of the okay that it fit with the conditional use permit. Was sort of, I don't know if there was a second conditional use permit, but it was more like, oh, what you're saying, you know, for that treatment center fits with the original condition. That's sort of my understanding. But in terms of the process, that's something we need to do. Is, you know, we had talked with the person who had created the sort of done the original evaluation of the property, and had actually, you know, had emailed with the Planning Commission, I think, those proposals, and yeah, so I guess that's something we need to kind of understand better, the process there for connecting with the community. I had sent an email to the development department, or some kind of a department that's supposed to help businesses create business or projects, and they kind of help sort of negotiate that, and I didn't hear back from. So I don't know if that's sort of the route to take, is that Planning Commission or something, is, I don't know. So that's something we need to look into, those sort of bureaucratic details. Yeah,
I think the point really is that the community was comfortable with that because it was a viable number to insert into the community, you know, in terms of people moving through the community traffic wise. So, you know, I in response to the other comment about a wedding or something, I'm assuming that a lot of people who attended a wedding there probably wouldn't be staying completely on the campus, you know. So I think it was just, the numbers are important because of its ability to limit density in terms, I think that was the point.
Yeah, so I'm hearing some concerns about the density of use, like how many people are there, the amount of traffic, and having there's going to be a sort of a comfort level with a certain density of use.
We've had 2 weddings on our properties.
Yeah, the neighbors the groundskeeper mentioned that. Said, "Oh, it's a little noisy over there."
We've been exchanging noise with St. Mary's for many years, because my husband has a rock and roll band.
Oh, okay.
And Father Patrick was so funny about that. He evidently grew up with Kenny Loggins. They went to high school together. So he was totally empathetic about our garage band, and we were totally empathetic about his teenagers screaming their lungs out, or whoever else was. It was all really very joyful and fun. And so that's not our concern. Our concern more is, and we don't plan to have any more weddings, by
Yeah.
the way.
They're all married off.
But we didn't have anybody staying on the mountain. You know, everybody was taken with, what do you call those? Buses or vans down away from that was our way of making our community comfortable with it. You know, but I think everybody's comfortable with 40 beds. I mean, and the occasional large group, you know, I think that's good, but we do want to underline that the numbers were the main snag. That was the main snag. And as I think permanent residence, that was the other thing, because that brings with it so much additional services and so that's the reason why we brought it up.
So hi Charles, you're having some internet problems. Are you there? Or you're sort of sideways, but
Yeah.
oh, there you are.
I'm here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it could be the weather, kind of the internet problems.
By the way,
A couple of things.
Oh, go ahead, Dawa.
Well, I thought maybe a couple of things I reflect here that I'm hearing that also are helpful for me to process, because I feel like I'm learning something. And that is that the numbers matter both for the surrounding community and also for the business model that you might be thinking about operating. And then also that the history matters, as well as the relationship of the people who live in the canyon that they have to nature there, and that there might be something for everybody to learn about that relationship and that history with nature. And then, of course, having lived through a few fires in Santa Barbara, it does change you, and it is something that if people are visiting and they have not lived through that, they may not have that appreciation. So I could see how making some effort maybe to educate people who come to visit and to give them a sense of these aspects, let's say, of caretaking of the community could be meaningful.
I think they're also.
Let me just catch Charles up. So we're just opening it for general discussion. Peter and Story have been talking about their concerns about the density, and that there was previously there'd been some density issues of not issues, but the previous proposal had been 40 beds plus staff, for the treatment center. And so they feel the community has an issue of the density of the use. And I think Dawa is you're saying that sort of an appreciation of the nature there, but also there's density, and then the business model too. There's something it has to work from a business point of view too. There's community issues, but then for it to be viable, there has to be sort of some that has to be taken into consideration too. So just wanted to catch you up on what's been said so far. Okay. And you're going to say, Peter, you had something?
Well, the details in planning matter. Just to give a kind of example, I think if there was going to be a wedding up there, the solution to the concerns is buses. In other words, 200 cars coming up in one day would be a problem, but 5 buses coming up there is no problem at all. We had weddings on our property. Both our daughters got married here at big weddings, and that's how we dealt with it. We had people meet downtown. So for a one-day event or something, I mean, the point I'm making is that the issues of density and usage can be finessed. They can be worked out, and they just have to be thought through. And I think that your general idea is going to be so popular in the immediate community that I think the details are workable.
And we're also, these circles are also about everybody having a voice and being able to discuss these issues and to raise these issues. So, and they're going to be ongoing too. So, you know, if you want to attend other circles, you know, you have more concerns, bring your friends too, you know, any other neighbors. We're glad for them to raise the issues and discuss them. And I think, Story, you were about to say something.
Well, I think history is important in that, you know, for those of us who went through a harrowing couple of months not knowing who the new buyers were going to be, actually, and we felt protected by the conditional use permit going forward. And I think that is what is, you know, since nobody knows what ultimately happens to a piece of property, we're hoping that you guys stay there forever, of course. But, you know, I mean, we can't wait to have good neighbors there. We loved having good neighbors there. But I think if we feel vulnerable in terms of some switching of gears in terms of, you know, a redescription of the conditional use permit would make us feel very vulnerable again.
Okay, so I'm hearing some concerns there about feeling vulnerable if the conditional use permit changes in some way.
There was a particular moment there was a series of meetings about that property and about the plans that went on last year that was mediated by the county sheriff. And there was a guy there representing the group that wanted to do rehab there. And he threw out a comment at one of the meetings that just set off an alarm. And what he said was, well, we understand we're starting with 40 beds and that's the conditional use permit. But once we're in there, we're going to go back to the city and double and triple that. And I don't think he understood when he said that, how that would land, but it didn't land well with the neighbors who felt like it was a little bit of a bait and switch. You know, it's just, I think that a well-crafted plan that has the backing of the neighborhood will succeed. I'm confident about that. I mean, I haven't talked to a single person who is not thrilled that you guys bought this place.
Absolutely thrilled.
That's been our experience too. It's been really positive. I mean, everybody's, I think, sort of like what you're saying, Dawa, sort of a space, you know, sort of a community space. It's been very positive about that. And a lot of people have different ideas on things that they would like to do there. You know, we've heard yoga, mindfulness. I mean, love to have any of your retreats, Dawa, or and Carolyn was talking about nature. So it's very open and eclectic to the different types of workshops and possible uses, and something. And there seems to be a lot of people in the community that do workshops, different types of trainings too. So I think we're open to all of those, right, Charles? Or do you have?
Right.
I also think that everybody's thrilled to have that building become useful and provide good. You know, that feels very good to have that building do what it was built for, to build goodness. You know, on some level, there's so many avenues, but that feels wonderful to all of us in the community.
And nobody expects it to sit empty. That's nobody's goal. Everybody understands it has to be used and it should be used. So I think there's a lot of support for you here.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
It might be, you know, interesting to do an empathy circle on business models, so you get some ideas from the community where the numbers can pencil out. Because it sounds from what Peter said that the numbers for some of the previous efforts did not work, and didn't end up working, right? And of course, would be nice to get ahead of that, so that that is something that maybe you don't find out 2-3 years going into this, that in the end you can't make the numbers work. And that might be something where the community could help from the very beginning, being part of a transparent process to really understand the numbers for a place like this. Because it must be,
Well, the previous efforts were not private. They were the previous efforts all had to do with sort of county health, mental health, trying to deal with the sheriff's department. I mean, these were not private sector efforts, which tend to be more rational. You can follow what I'm saying here. In other words, they were trying to get, well, the state will provide so many dollars per bed per night. And, you know, there were all of these very complicated formulas that they were working with, but none of them were private business models. You know, so wasn't really privy to the inside of that, but when I went to those meetings, I could see that all of these county bureaucrats wrangling between them to see who could get what money from where. So I don't know how applicable all that was to your situation. I don't know.
Well, Charles is funding this, so he's willing to put, you know, the money into it to do the renovations, and so there's not you know, of different kind of groups, you know, the bureaucracy of that. So that's not sort of an issue. Right. But the other part was the Dawa is actually Kent Ferguson had put together a draft budget, actually, you know, double entry draft budget very kindly. So we've been talking about that. We had about an hour discussion, you know, before this circle. He was in the last circle. And so what I'm kind of hearing you saying is like, have the numbers out there so the community can see the numbers, and then have a discussion about those numbers so that people can say, well, this is what it takes to run something that's you know, financially viable. I mean, that's kind of what I'm hearing, is have it sort of be transparent, like that would be helpful.
And I think,
go ahead.
I think there are retreat centers maybe that could, you know, maybe even Casa de Maria would be willing to share their numbers. They've been running a retreat center up until the mudslide, so they have some experience as to what numbers can work and what numbers cannot work in the community. Not that this means it's a limitation for you, but it just gives some comps, some comparables, right?
I also think, you know, in other organizations, like there's Ganavalska's, what's it called? Lotus Land. And there's the Botanic Garden. There's a certain kind of elasticity that they employ in high fire times. You know, of course, we know that we have a pretty much all the time fire time now, but there are times that are more vulnerable. And so populations go up and down, and they follow certain, you know, red alert things because they also are in areas that, so there are times when higher numbers would be totally appropriate, and times when they wouldn't. I mean, it's sort of an interesting model, but they've done this very effectively. You know, the Botanic Garden is our neighbor to the west, and you know, Lotus Land is our neighbor to the east. And so that's another interesting, maybe something to explore, you know, where you could swell your numbers at certain times. And I don't know, I mean, I don't really know how they manage it, but we know we're subject to it because we read the signs coming up the road. If it's a red alert, you know, certain things don't happen. And but other times, you know, Christmas time, or I mean, you know, obviously we're in atmospheric river now. So it's just, I think there's lots of very kind of compatible ways of looking at this.
I wanted to make another comment, which is that I guess you saw the protests. Probably the biggest part of the protests was because the people behind the last effort did it in secret and did not engage the community till they were forced to. And you're doing exactly the opposite, which is really, really good. I mean, the television station was up there with a camera before anyone in this neighborhood knew what the plan was. And it really, really made people angry that it was done as long as possible. They kept it a secret what their plans were. And that did not help them in the end. So you're doing the right thing. You really are. So
it's also the empathic things.
Yes.
It's the process that we're talking about. So what it is empathy. You know, a culture of empathy is what we're working for. Is about openness and transparency. So we're trying to walk the talk too.
Thank
you for that.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to acknowledge, Edwin, your passion for empathy is very nice. And it's also rare, even though you say people are speaking about empathy, the people who do speak about it regularly and consistently are not that many. So I just wanted to say it's nice. It's nice. It's a very important topic.
Thanks for that. Yeah, 3% of the votes. That tells you the percentage of people behind, empathy. So that's what my sense is. It's kind of low. And Barack Obama, when he ran for office, he said, the budget deficit's important, but I worry more about the empathy deficit than in the country. So, and one of his regrets, he said when he finally, after he finished, being president, he said, my one regret is that I wasn't able to bridge the divide. So I think he had some regret that he wasn't able to sort of manifest that bridging of the divides. And I think that's something we have with these tools. He didn't like empathy circles. It would have been nice if you would have had the Democrats and Republicans in Congress having empathy circles, for example, right? Or Trump and Biden, having an empathy circle together. So I just kind of add that.
Thank you very much for inviting us to this. It's really been very, very lovely to visit with you guys, to know you a little bit better. We can't wait. We'll meet you up there the next time you're here. We'd love to come say hello.
Do you know?
Yeah, we'll come up soon, right, Charles? We're gonna talk about when we come up, so it'll be pretty soon.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if Charles wants to talk. I don't know if Charles wants to talk about it, but there's an intriguing picture in his background that I cannot make out, but I do wonder what it is.
Oh, Carolyn asked about it. It's a history of the world.
Yeah, kind of a history of the world.
But it's from a religious point of view, right? Sort of a biblical. Is that right, Charles? Or
Because on the biblical, it kind of shows where different things were in relation to each other, because each little line is 100 years, so you see how different events relate to each other.
Interesting. And that is something one can find online?
Send you a link to where you can find it online.
Thank you.
One of my interests is world.
You're breaking up there, Charles. If you turn your video off, you might have more bandwidth.
I just saying one of my interests was world history.
A pleasure to meet everybody.
Yes.
Well, thanks for joining us. Yeah.
And we will spread the word.
Yeah, it's every Monday we're having these circles. If you go to the website, to the Google Doc, you can see the open empathy cafe. So you're welcome to join again or bring your friends, and we hope to scale them up, maybe add more too if there's more interest. We can add another day as well. So so thank you very much for joining us, and to be continued.
This was positive. I liked it.
Thank you.
so much.
And please let us know when you're coming to Santa Barbara. We will
Trot on up there and see
yeah,
you.
we'll meet you up
Okay.
there. We'll get together.
I'll send an email with the different information. Once this is up online, should be a day or so. I'll
Right.
post it, and you can share it with your friends, and we definitely will email you as soon as when we're coming up.
Great. Thank you very
So,
much.
Thank
so
you.
thanks, Story. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Dawa.
Thank you, Edwin.
Bye-bye.
Nice
Great
to
to-
meet you, Peter and Story. Bye. And nice to meet you, Charles. Bye.